Welcome to Blind Spots, a podcast where we're helping you fill the gap between what you want to do with your money and what you actually do. We are professional investors, writers, and financial planners helping you navigate the complexities of finance to optimize what you can control and cut out the rest. Join your host, Nik Schuurmans and Erin Varghese, as we discuss the questions and nuances surrounding everyday money management. Investment advisory services offered through Pure Portfolios, a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Nik Schuurmans and Erin Varghese work for Pure Portfolios. Any opinions expressed by Nik and Erin or any podcast guest are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Pure Portfolios. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. It should not be construed as legal or tax advice and is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified attorney or tax professional. Clients of Pure Portfolios may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast. This information is not an offer or solicitation to buy or sell securities. The information contained may have been compiled from third-party sources and is believed to be reliable. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Blind Spots podcast. For the very first time, we have a guest on our podcast. So for our 20th episode, we are joined by Toby Weber, who is one of the partners here at Pure Portfolios. And today we are going to be hearing all about Toby's personal journey, how he made a career change, leaving a successful career from corporate finance and pivoting into wealth management, and how his perspective on the industry has changed over the years. So not only do we want to introduce you to Toby because he's a big part of Pure Portfolios, but he has a lot of great years of experience that I think you will find valuable. So Toby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Erin. This is my first podcast that I've been on. I listened to a ton of podcasts, but never been on one myself. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's kind of odd sitting from the other side of the table, I guess.
Yep.
Okay, so to break the ice a little bit, I didn't prepare you for this, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I've got 5 questions. I'm just going to rapid fire at you. Give me the first thing that pops into your mind.
I'm
totally
ready.
Non-podcast related. But first, what is a hobby that you have outside of work and family, something you enjoy doing?
I enjoy playing tennis. I have a group of guys that I play tennis with throughout the week, and that's one of the things I really enjoy.
Very nice. So if you are going to pick up a snack, is it salty or sweet?
Sweet.
Okay,
Chocolate, preferably.
Chocolate? I'm the opposite. I always go for something salty. What is your all-time favorite movie?
All-time favorite movie, probably Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Kind of a family-oriented classic movie that we like to watch over the holidays.
Very nice. One thing that is on your bucket list.
One thing on my bucket list.
Could be anything. Doesn't have to be the most extreme.
One thing on my bucket list. It is a tough one. It would probably be travel related, and I'd like to go to Australia with my wife. I've been there once before and really enjoyed it. And she would really like to go, and I'd like to go there with her at some point.
Where were you before, and would you go back to the same place or try a different area?
Yeah, we were with, it was a work-related trip, and we went to Brisbane and then went a little bit up the Gold Coast area. Yeah. And I would definitely go back to that area, but I'd also like to see Melbourne, Sydney, and frankly, I'd like to get out west to Perth and some of the areas out west as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great trip. So piggybacking off of that, what is the most interesting place that you've traveled to? Last question.
I think the most interesting place I've traveled to, my wife and I went to Positano in Italy, and it was kind of built into the hillside on the Amalfi Coast. And it was the most relaxing vacation I've ever gone on. And we just had a great time there, but it was very memorable, that's for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. I need to talk to you about that later then, because my husband and I are going to Positano as part of our trip to Italy in October. So I'll need to get your recommendations.
Fair enough.
But it looks beautiful. Okay, let's jump into it. Thanks for playing along. So tell us a little bit about your background pre-wealth management. How long have you been in the industry? What did you do before?
So I came to the industry in 2016 after a career in corporate finance. So a variety of roles in finance and accounting for ESCO Corporation. I worked for Oracle. I worked for a small startup company during that time, always in the financial realm and accounting realm, and also did some mergers and acquisitions activity when I was with ESCO as well.
What did you like most about that during that time?
I enjoyed building my career and learning all the different aspects of finance and accounting. I think when you're in school and you study finance and accounting, it's all very theoretical. But
Mm-hmm.
working for a medium-sized company like ESCO and getting to get my hands dirty in all aspects of financial planning, accounting. I was a controller for a period of time. I was treasurer for a period of time. And then, like I said, the mergers and acquisition activity was really interesting because identify companies to be purchased and work on the transaction itself, and then also in the integration of that company into ESCO. So I just got a ton of great experience over my 15, 18-year career with ESCO and really enjoyed that.
So then what led to your career change and wanting to pivot after so many years?
I think I looked ahead and decided that I had accomplished quite a bit at ESCO. I had risen through the ranks, very fortunate to work with some great people as I did that. But I got to a point where I felt like I maybe wasn't as challenged or wasn't learning as much as I would have liked, as maybe I was early in my career. So I felt like I wanted to go do something different with the second half of my career. I didn't know what that was, but I just knew that it was going to be something outside the corporate world.
How long did it take for you from the time when you first kind of had that inkling to when you really made that decision and took the leap?
It was probably about a 5-year stretch.
Oh, wow.
I'm a bit of a planner, as you may know, and so I'm always thinking about where I want to be in the future and what steps do I need to take today to put me on track to get there. That's kind of part of my makeup, and so I started to think about what life after ESCO or after the corporate world would look like, probably in about 2009, 2010, and ultimately ended up leaving ESCO in 2014. And then decided, when I left ESCO, I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do. I wanted to take a break and, as I like to say, reintroduce myself to my family because I had put in a lot of hours at ESCO. And so I wanted to take a little bit of a break, do some traveling, and then figure out what I wanted to do as my next adventure.
I think that's a great reason to make the decision. And a lot of people have those thoughts, but never bring it to fruition. So how did you go about communicating the career change to your family, to your wife, and how did that conversation look like? How did they take it?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that I not only came from a large family, but my wife and I have 5 kids. And my wife, Nikki, has been very supportive. I think she knows that I will analyze and do the worrying for both of us. So she kind of leaves me to it. And then I bounce ideas off of her and use her as kind of a sounding board. And sometimes she'll tell me I'm crazy, which is good.
Sure.
So in the midst of communicating that with my family, and again, very supportive of that change, but I really took about, as I said, 4 or 5 years to make the switch. And part of what I was doing in that time frame was building up savings and reserves. And ESCO had a deferred compensation plan, and I was able to push a lot of my compensation in there over that last 5 years. And what that did is it gave me a bit of a safety net. When I knew I was going to leave ESCO, I knew that I would have an income during that time from the deferred compensation plan. So, it's an example of kind of, I'm always planning, always thinking about, how I get to where I want to be, and having that ability to plan and put money away for that transition was very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's a great opportunity to be able to take advantage of that your company offered that to you. And for anyone who has that available, I think, from a tax standpoint, it's always great to be able to defer compensation if you're able to with your budget and lifestyle, but to be also be able to plan for other life events too, like you said, wanting to take a little bit of a sabbatical for yourself outside of the corporate world, and having the ability to do that through your deferred compensation plan is a great idea.
Yes, I think it worked out well in my case.
So how long did you end up taking for your sabbatical to spend time with your family, to travel, and what all did you really do?
I left in 2014 and ended up taking about 2 years off. And I had no idea I was going to take that long away. I thought for sure I would be bored and would want to jump back into it. But what I found is there was a lot of other activities that would keep me busy. As you mentioned, I did some traveling, and I also did some investing during that time. And I think that led me to the decision that I wanted to get my CFA. So the CFA was something that I had been dancing around with for many years. Felt like it was something that I wanted to accomplish at some point. And now I finally had the time to consider tackling that. The CFA, for those who don't know, it's a 3-year, 3-exam, knockdown, drag out process that takes roughly 1,000 hours of study to complete. And it's very focused in the investment area. It's very deep in that area. So not as broad as, say, a CFP, but very deep in the investment area. And so it gave me an opportunity during that time to make the decision and then start to go down the path for my CFA.
Yeah, so you were able to take that time to kind of deepen your education in an area where you maybe did not have so much exposure when you were working, and that helped kind of lead you into the path where you are now. But what else did you learn during that time off? Because not everything is going to be so education focused. I'm sure there was some personal growth as well.
Yeah, I think the traveling helped. And I think what I realized when I left ESCO, as great as that experience was, and as much as I enjoyed the people I worked with, you start to realize that the corporate world is a little bit of a different animal, and that the work that you're doing oftentimes very important, but the beneficiary of that work ends up being the company and the shareholder. And while that provides a certain amount of satisfaction and fulfillment, you start to realize that there's a whole lot more opportunity for satisfaction and fulfillment outside of that world. And again, nothing but positive things for ESCO and the opportunities I had there. It was life-changing. But the more removed you get from it, you start to realize that there's probably an opportunity to go in a direction that brings me more fulfillment and more satisfaction from what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more prevalent as the years go by, that, I know at least for my parents' generation, it's pretty typical that someone is at one corporation for 30, 40 plus years, and that's where they work their entire career. They've got a pension, and, that's where they live, and that's where they almost die, essentially. But for people now, I think that they're finding that just isn't how they want to live their life, that there's more out there than just the work they do from 9 to 5. So what advice would you have for someone who is maybe starting to get that inkling like you had for several years of, I want to do something different. This isn't what I want to do forever. What would you tell that person?
Yeah, I think it's, from my perspective, you are the sum of your experiences. And so every stop that I've had, every job that I've had, every company that I've worked for, I feel like I've taken something from that experience. And what you realize is that leaving a corporate job or leaving a company that may be safe to go to work for a startup or to go to work for something that's you're passionate about, is that you're going to be fine to make that leap as long as you're willing to invest the time and energy and effort to be successful. I had been fortunate in my career. I had been successful every step of the way, and that was great. And so I looked at it not from what I was giving up, but what I was stepping into, and felt like if I continued to apply the effort and work ethic, that I would be successful in what I did next. And my fallback was always, because I'm kind of a belt and suspenders type of guy, but my fallback was always, what's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario was I go out and do something else and it doesn't work. And then guess what? I could probably go back and, crawl back to ESCO or crawl back to the corporate world and get a job back and be able to support my family, that way. So, and I share that type of perspective sometimes with clients, which is, hey, what's the downside? What's the worst case scenario? And if the worst case scenario isn't that bad, then I would always encourage people to take the leap and take the risk, because that's where I think the real growth comes from.
That is such great advice. And I know that's going to resonate with a lot of people who are starting to have those thoughts and feelings. So we'll move on in a second, but I just kind of want to get your reaction or thoughts to this quote that I heard the other day that, like you said, to take that leap, sometimes it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And if you're willing to put in the work, it could be really great for you. But there's a lot of people who are maybe just coasting. They're okay with their job. They don't love it, but they're really not willing to put in the work and the effort that it takes to make a transition or make a move to a new career that might make them more happy in the end, but they're just not willing to do the work on the front end. So I heard someone the other day say, you don't have to love your job. We're always taught that if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life, but that's not the case for many people. And this person said that you don't have to love your job. You just have to like it enough to not be, totally miserable. And as long as you just look at it as a way to supplement your lifestyle and that you find fulfillment in other areas, that's okay too. So for the person who's maybe feel like they're stuck in the corporate world, but they just don't want to put in the time and effort to make that transition, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, to each their own type of an approach. I've always looked at it that if you are going to switch careers, switch companies, switch roles, you have to bring something to the table for that. So to your point, if you're just coasting and you're not really adding value, one, you're probably not going to be very satisfied and fulfilled at the end of the day. And number two, you're probably not going to be perceived by your employer or a boss that, hey, this person is really, moving the needle and adding value. And so I always felt in my career that the one thing I could bring to the table was always effort. And that if I worked as hard as I could, and that's a sacrifice to do that, but if I could do that, and if I could find ways to add value, there would be all sorts of opportunities would be opened up for me. And again, I've been very fortunate in my career that that's been the case. And I've always found that to be exciting, is to have variety and to be able to, I couldn't foresee myself staying in the same role for 20 years. I would get bored. I always like to be learning new things. I like to be challenged. I like to feel like I am behind the curve, because that motivates me to put in the work and put in the time to learn and to get up to speed in an area that perhaps I wasn't before. So for people that are in a role that they can do and they like it, but maybe don't love it, that might work for them. But I think long term, continuing to grow and learn and find the opportunities that really inspire you is probably where you're going to find more happiness.
Wow, great advice. So we'll move on to the last, say, five or so years. So you took 2 years off. What really brought you to Northwest Wealth Advisors, where you originally landed in wealth management? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah, so in 2016, I started talking to different companies about joining them as a wealth manager, investment advisor, and ultimately met an individual by the name of Mark Neal, who was the founder of Northwest Wealth Advisors. And I had some discussions with Mark, who was looking for a successor for him in his business as he was approaching retirement. And so I joined Northwest Wealth Advisors in 2016. And it was almost, in my thinking at that time, a proof of concept. I felt like I could do this job. There were aspects of it that I was concerned about, but I wouldn't know until I did it. If I didn't take the opportunity to move into the wealth management space and be an investment advisor, that I would always regret and wonder if I could have been successful at that. So there's a difference between being knowledgeable and credible in the space and people willing to trust you with their hard-earned savings and their nest egg. And so that was the piece as I moved into this industry that I wasn't sure was going to happen. But the only way to find out was to take the plunge and see what that looked like.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, the fail rate in this industry it kind of depends what firm you go to, but at the big wirehouses and brokerages, it's like 98%, of people who try it out and just really don't stick. So tell me about your first year in the industry. What did that look like?
My first year in the industry, I remember coming in and you don't have any clients. And I think back to that now. And so my approach was, I'm going to get out and meet as many people as I can. And these would be people, former work colleagues, friends of mine, anybody that I thought was someone that I could see myself working with. And I would just explain to them what I'm doing and explain to them how we're going to do it at Northwest Wealth Advisors. And just one, make them aware of it. And two, if there was an opportunity to help them, I wanted to be in a position to do so. Again, the planning that I did up front gave me a safety net so that I didn't have to, oh my gosh, I have to make X amount of money in the first year, or I'm
Mhm.
not going to be able to support my family. I had already taken that off the table. And so it gave me the ability to not be desperate, not be, to really do it the right way and just canvas my network and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's why I think I can be successful at it. Here's how I think I can help you.
Mm.
And then let the chips fall where they may. So it was a lot of coffee and lunches and catching up with people that maybe I hadn't seen in a little while, but it was great. And then during that time, I was studying for the CFA. So it was quite a busy time. But you go from having no clients to starting to build your book. And that's a very exciting because you're proving that, hey, maybe I am going to be able to do this. And that's exciting as you get started.
So, how many levels of the CFA had you passed when you joined Northwest Wealth Advisors?
Good question. I think I had passed one and was studying for two of the three. So I would tend to do my work from, call it 8 to 3, and then I would go to the library and study for, a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours a day. And that was kind of my life for the first couple of years
Mhm.
at Northwest Wealth Advisors. And I was very fortunate to have a partner in Mark Neal at Northwest Wealth that could show me the ropes.
Mhm.
So rather than, have to learn everything on my own, I was able to benefit from Mark's experience in the industry as I built my book of business, in 2016.
Yeah, that's great. There's really no direct path into this industry. Everyone seems to kind of have their own story, their own way that they got here. So I always find it interesting. But one thing I did want to know is something that you said that I really think speaks to your integrity and your character, which is of utmost importance when dealing with clients and managing money, is that you said that when you first spoke with some colleagues and friends and everyone in your network, that you looked for people who you would want to work with and that you knew you could help. And so I think that for people who are looking to work with an advisor or are currently working with an advisor, that character fit is something that's really important, because there's a lot of people who are just salesmen or asset collectors, and having that personal connection with your advisor is really important. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I would add on to that a couple of thoughts. One, I knew that I wanted to be in the business for the rest of my career, and I had already enjoyed a level of success in my prior career that allowed me, again, to take a slow build approach to my business. I didn't have to rush into it. So I could take the time to demonstrate to folks how I would approach it and what we would do. And I think what I found that was really enlightening to me and maybe helpful to some folks out there as well. But what I realized is that the clients I was able to get in the first couple of years, I only got those clients because they knew the type of person I was.
Mhm.
And I had generated some goodwill with them from my time working with them. So, you tend to think, hey, I'm going through the motions at my job and this won't matter 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I truly believe that the way that I carried myself and the way that I approached working at the various companies that I was at led people to believe, hey, I could feel comfortable trusting that person because I know they're going to work hard and I know they're going to do everything they can to help me, which is what I did in the rest of my working career. So that was really eye-opening to me. In other words, if I had kind of been hit or miss throughout my work career, people might have said, I don't know if I really want to trust that guy or work with that guy. But I think that by taking my role seriously at every stop, now when I came to people, one, they were willing to meet with me, and two, they felt comfortable, I think, to work with me moving forward in this new role because of the approach that I had taken with them in the past.
Something that I have learned over the years is that people won't remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that is so important when thinking about building your network, or as a new advisor, building your book of business, is that your clients really rely on the way that you make them feel. And if they feel like they can trust you from your actions and ultimately your words too, that will carry a lot of weight.
I agree.
Okay, so you were with Northwest Wealth Advisors and Mark Neal for about 5 years, right?
Yes, about 5 years. And Mark started to make plans to retire from the firm. And so I looked at what type of firm I wanted to be part of moving forward. And I realized I didn't really want to be kind of a one-man band
Yeah.
moving forward. So I wanted to find a partner that I could either join or merge with that would, one, continue to challenge me, would help bring additional expertise and resources that maybe I didn't have. And so I wanted to go out and search the local market for that type of a firm that I could see myself partnering with when Mark retired from Northwest Wealth Advisors.
So how many firms did you interview or look into? And then what ended up leading you to Pure Portfolios, and how did you make that decision?
I think in total, I probably talked to over 20 firms over the course of call it an 18-month period.
Wow.
And most of these folks, I would reach out to them. Maybe I came across them on Twitter. Maybe I came across them in research on the internet and would just reach out to them and say, hey, let's grab coffee and talk about it. So I met with probably 20 plus firms, and that helped me in a couple of ways. One, obviously, it helped me understand the firms that were out there and how they approached this wealth management space, which was eye-opening in some regards. And then number two, it obviously led me to find the right partner in Pure Portfolios, which we ended up merging with in last year. So what was interesting to me during that process is that all of the firms I met with felt like they were doing something unique and that they had a differentiation in their business that they felt helped them stand out from the others. In my thinking, a lot of them were doing things exactly the same way as one another.
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't all that appealing to me or attractive to me. I felt like I should have tried to put some of the firms together that said, oh, we're doing things differently. And I thought, I just talked with a guy down the street and he's doing things differently the exact same way that you're doing them. So maybe you two should get together, but I'm going to keep looking. And
what's your past like merger and acquisition brain? Like, where can I put all of these people?
Because I think it's going to be a common theme in our business is consolidation. It's really difficult to have a one-person shop and to be able to pay for the necessary technology, the compliance requirements, all of that. And so, I think it's going to be typical in our industry to see more consolidation. And also you have people that are aging out of the business, and those clients and those advisors need someone to step in and help them going forward. So I think that's going to be important going forward. But my search led me to talk to a number of firms out there, several of which, I really liked what they were doing and made sense to me. But ultimately, I sat down with Nik Schuurmans at Pure. And I think I had come to Nik after seeing something he wrote over Twitter and then following to his website and seeing what he was up to and felt like I wanted to meet this individual and see what they were all about. And what I found from the moment I started talking to Nik is he truly wanted to do things differently. So not like the other folks that were kind of pretending to do things differently. Nik wanted to be disruptive. He wanted to be innovative. He wanted to disrupt the wealth management industry because he felt like we could do a better job for clients moving forward if we did that. And that, that spoke volumes to me. That was really exciting to me. And that was not something I heard at any other firm that I spoke with.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Nik just exudes passion when you talk to him. And I think that's part of the reason why Pure Portfolios has been so successful, because all of our clients who come in contact with him really feel that as well. But Nik isn't here to defend himself. But tell me, what was your first impression on Nik when you first sat down and talked with him?
So would you talk to Nik and you'll ask a question and then you'll touch on a subject that he is passionate about. And as to your point, he almost can't help himself. He's the next thing you know, he's gesturing, he's almost yelling that this is the way to do it. This is the way it has to be done. No other way makes sense. And his passion, as you said, really comes through. So meeting Nik, that was my first impression of him. Not only does he want to do things differently and do things better for clients, but he's incredibly passionate about that and wanting to do that. And then meeting David is a tremendous compliment to Nik. So Nik is is the passion, and David is the calm, let's make sure we can make this happen. Let me figure out how we're going to make that happen. So they have a nice blend of Nik and David and their personalities that work well together.
Yeah, they're a perfect complement where Nik is like kicking the wheels off and David's like, no, let's like crank those on a little bit tighter.
Yep. So that relationship that they had was great. And as the more I talked to Nik at Pure, the more I felt like that could be the partner that would really get me excited and be helpful, not only for me, but for my clients as well. The amount of content and information that Nik is providing and David is providing to their clients on a daily, weekly, monthly basis was an area that I felt was lacking in our business. And that was exciting to me to bring that to my clients, as well as the expertise that David and Nik had.
Yeah. So don't throw out any names because we don't want to name names, but what were some of the red flags that you saw from the other advisors that when they maybe came up, you immediately said like, nah, this maybe isn't the kind of firm that I want to work with?
Yeah, I think some of the firms were pretty bureaucratic. And so, we not only have a team approach, but you're going to have 100 to 200 clients. That was a concern to me because I've gotten comfortable with working closely with clients and felt like if I've got 200 clients that I need to work with, I'm not going to be able to deliver the same level of service and same level of contact with clients that I want to. I consider this a very relationship-oriented business, and that 100%. Trust and that relationship with the client is critical. And the reason that they're wanting to work with us is because they're comfortable with what we're doing, but they're also comfortable with the individuals that are doing it. Yeah. And so the challenge as you get bigger is making sure you don't lose that while still continuing to be able to grow the business. And that's always been important. So that was one item. Some of the investment approaches, I didn't agree with a lot of use of mutual funds, in some cases, expensive mutual funds. And then the third item that sticks out to me was the fees. I think, Nik talked about driving low fees. And I talked to folks that charge 1.25%, 1.5%, sometimes more. And you attack mutual fund expense ratios on top of that. And so you start to look at it and, they're telling clients that they're looking out for their best interest, but their actions maybe don't support that contention.
That's good. Good stuff for people who are prospective clients of other advisors to look out for as well. So good nugget of knowledge there. So when I joined Pure Portfolios back in 2020, it was just David, Nik, and I. And then after the merger, after we've hired another one, we're a team of 6 now. So tell us a little bit about your current position with Pure Portfolios. What do you do now as a partner?
So my role today is in some respects very similar to what I did at Northwest Wealth. Client service is kind of the number one priority. So working with my clients on a daily and weekly basis to whether it be planning or management of their portfolio. So client service is still a big part of what I do. It's important at Pure, we want to continue to grow the firm. So being active in trying to find new business, trying to find new folks that we can help and that we can connect with. So that's an important part of what I do. In terms of the firm itself, I'm the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. So I am in charge of all the financial activities for the firm, banking relationships, that type of thing, managing the cash flow. We're a small firm, but all of that needs to be done appropriately. So that's in my role as CFO, I do that. And then a big part of my day, and this is something that's really important to me, is just learning. So continuing to read, listen to podcasts such as Blind Spots, one of my favorites. But continuing to learn is really important. It helps me do a better job in working with clients if I feel like I'm up to speed on what's going on and continuing to improve myself. So those are the things that keep me pretty busy here at Pure.
Yeah, in a conversation that we had recently, you mentioned that you got your CFA, you joined Northwest Wealth Advisors, and you thought that the majority of your job would be surrounded by the portfolio management, investment management piece of what we do, but it looks a little bit different now than what you thought. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I think when I started in the business, I figured I would spend 70% of my time researching, managing, monitoring portfolios, and maybe 30% of my time, 20 to 30% of my time on planning. And I think what I found pretty quickly is that those numbers are actually reversed. I found that in order to understand the clients I'm working with, to understand their goals, their needs, concerns, hopes, fears, I really needed to spend time looking at their financial picture and talking to them and getting to know them in that regard. So I find that I spend, more than half of my time today on planning because it really sets up everything else that we do for clients. If you really understand what drives a client or the situation a client is in and where they want to go, it's a whole lot easier to build a portfolio to help them get there, and one that they're going to be able to stick with in up markets and down markets, as we've seen so far this year. So planning is really, I think, the most critical part of what we do, because it helps us to get that understanding of our clients.
Yeah, as a financial planner, I might be biased because I enjoy the financial planning piece probably the most of everything that we do, but it almost baffles me a little bit because I see the importance of financial planning and the impact that it has on clients. It just surprises me that there are a lot of people who don't do financial planning of any sort. And I see the importance that it has in helping dictate what the investment management then looks like based on a client's total financial picture. And it's really hard for me to understand how there are, firms or managers out there that don't do financial planning of any sort. And it's hard to understand how they come to the conclusion that they do of what a portfolio should look like or how the client's money should be managed if they have no idea any of the other things that are going on in their life. Like, they're so focused and filtered in on the investment piece that everything else kind of falls by the wayside. And I just have a hard time understanding how you can truly operate in your client's best interest without knowing all of the other things.
I agree 100%. I mentioned earlier that working in the corporate world, the fulfillment and satisfaction you get from that is different than when you're actually sitting across the table, putting a plan together for someone.
Yeah.
And you see the light bulb go on that, hey, I didn't know that about my financial situation.
Yeah.
We have a plan that's going to help us get to paying for kids' education, get us to retirement, let us our money last until we need it to. And I leave those meetings feeling like I really helped someone understand that. And that's the fulfillment and satisfaction that I get, from planning. And so I really enjoy it. And I think it also allows us to build trust with folks. They get to see what we're about and what we're capable of doing, and we get to learn about them. So it's a great partnership in that regard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So we're getting a little long on time here. So just for our last question, tell me what is next. What is next for Toby? What's next for Pure Portfolios?
I'm excited about the future at Pure Portfolios, notwithstanding the current market volatility, which also, presents some challenges in the short term. But it also gives us an opportunity to show clients how our investment approach works in not just up markets, but down markets as well. But I think the firm is well positioned to continue to grow. I'm excited about the potential to hire an additional person or two in 2022 to Pure Portfolios as we continue that growth. We still have some integration work that needs to be hammered out. When you bring two firms together like Northwest Wealth Advisors and Pure, you have to evaluate how each firm does something and then decide which is the right path moving forward, and then work with the team and work with clients to transition them. So we've still got some integration work get finished up in 2022, but I'm excited about the work that I'm doing, the clients I get to work with, and where the firm is headed over the next couple of years.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be a part of the journey as well. So thank you, Toby, for being on our 20th episode of Blind Spots. It was really great to have you on here, and we are looking forward to all of our future episodes with you as a guest as well.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
So thanks everyone for listening to Blind Spots. You can find us at pureportfolios.com to learn more about our firm, and you can email us questions at insight@pureportfolios.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.